Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our Full Throttle Talks here. Little podcast we put together for some NASCAR stuff. So, coming on a little bit late, had it for 6:15, running a little behind today. But we're going to get into some of the North Wilkesboro race. This is one of the first tracks NASCAR ever raced at. Went away for a while, has recently come back. This will mark the 30 years since the last point-paying race was ran here. That's a pretty long time. But we'll get into kind of what happened and how it came back. And then we'll look at the truck series. Qualifying has already been done for that. And practice and qualifying is done for the truck series. So we'll look at the lineup for tomorrow afternoon's race. I'm going to keep an eye on the weather. There's potential for rain again, which is another pet peeve of mine. Would you have rain moving into a Sunday night race? We saw what it did last week at Atlanta. Forced, the race ended at about 1:45, almost 2 o'clock in the morning. So makes it pretty rough for people who got to get up and go to work the next day. But makes it rough on the fans that are at the race. Makes it rough on everybody. So going to keep an eye on the weather, see what happens there. Hopefully, if they know it, maybe they have enough window and TNT will be a good partner with them and work on a way to maybe either move the race up a little bit, which, that has its downfalls too, because night racing is so fun. So, we'll get into some of that. We'll get into some of the lap records, some of the previous winners. We're not going to go as deep on the previous winners on this one because it's been so long. Nobody active has won there in a points paying race. Excuse me. They're, go through some of that. Like I said, look at the truck series, look at the cup series, and look at the bracket challenge, and then we'll jump out of here and get on with our Friday night heading into our weekend. So North Wilkesboro Speedway is a little over half a mile, 0.625 miles. So a little over half a mile long. It's an oval short track in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. In 97, it started well. The inaugural season racing was in 1947. So it went from 47 to 97. The capacity listed at this track is 25,000. It's not a lot, tells you. You look at some of these other tracks we talk about where you're talking 60, 70, 80, 100,000. This is a quarter of some of that. So really small track. But man, it does some good racing there. So see where else we can jump on here. Let's see. The banking. We always like to get in that. You got 13 degrees of banking in the turns and 3 degrees of banking on the track straightaways. However, the front stretch is graded at a downhill slope and the back stretch is graded uphill. And that's because the founder, Enoch Stanley, I hope I said that name right, running out of funds when he was doing construction. I'm pretty sure that's kind of been changed by now, but I'm not 100%. But it's also not a symmetrical oval. It's asymmetrical. So, it's kind of a crazy track to look at. But it does put on some good racing. Let's see where else you want to look at. I'm just looking through some fun facts I printed off today to see what's going to jump out the most here. Of course, it's been upgraded with all the safer barriers and all that stuff. When they did do a remodel to an extent of it, They left a lot of the original structures, just kind of touched them up a little bit. Even a tower sits there that was sponsored back in the day when the Cup was sponsored by Winston cigarettes. Those are still there. So it's kind of crazy to see that still in today's NASCAR, where there's no tobacco like cigarettes sponsoring it. You don't see Marlboro or Camel or none of that stuff. So going back, talking to, I wasn't, but somebody talked to Junior Johnson, a former NASCAR personality and racer, of course. And he says that races were held there before NASCAR sanctioned it. That's where a lot of the moonshiners would meet up and race to see who had the best cars. That was what Junior Johnson was said. And then Bill France started promoting races there. And then in 1947, they were expecting the largest crowd at a sporting event within Wilkes County at the time. At the first official race, they said they drew approximately 10,000, saw Fonty Flock win the modified feature race. Fonty Flock would definitely be on the all NASCAR name team. There's no question. You can't leave Fonty off. I mean, what the flock would you be thinking? So, with the 90s, became the big boom of stock car racing. Mike Helton, who was the vice president of competition, said there's not any room on the Cup schedule left for us to expand. But at the same time frame, they were looking at Dallas, Fort Worth, Las Vegas, and St. Louis to put new markets in because of the boom. They were trying to get, Dallas, Fort Worth, a huge metropolitan area. St. Louis, big city there. Las Vegas, I mean, it's Vegas. And they started realizing that if they build these tracks, if we can't expand the schedule longer, something's going to have to go. And North Wilkesboro is what went. Well, along with some others too, don't get me wrong. Rusty Wallace, a name some people might know, a more recent person, but in 1996, drivers were all clamoring, saying, we need tracks that are better for us. We need better facilities on pit roads. We need bigger payouts, which, a bigger crowd. So another thing that hurt North Wilkesboro is location. It's pretty close to Bristol Motor Speedway and Martinsville, who both went under big expansions to bring in the bigger crowds. So it didn't, North Wilkesboro, hence it went away. Let's see. The main, where'd it go? There we go. You don't need this. I'm trying to get to the page. My pages got out of order. I guess I was reading them earlier. I'm trying to get to, of course, then it went away in 97. And our 96 was the last points paying race there. We'll get into who won that here in a minute. So after that race, then 2 months later, which would have been in November, NASCAR put out their 1997 season schedule. The Cup Series wasn't going to be there, but they put it out for the Busch and Craftsman Truck Series, and it was left out of all racing sanctions, or all racing from NASCAR. No trucks, no Xfinity, Busch Series then, Xfinity, or O'Reilly's Auto Parts Series now. Our Cup Series was there. They still wanted to do some sort of racing, but it just wasn't going to work. They had a stockholders meeting in December of 97, and it was officially closed with all the employees being laid off, except for one. His name was Paul Cal. He was put in charge as the caretaker of the property because he cut a deal to do that to live on the property. So that was the only employee that was ever stayed there, and he just kind of got to, I guess, live there for free as long as he took care of the property. But one man can't take care of that whole property. It's just not possible. There'd be too much to do. And then you fast forward from 97, we're going to fast forward to 2019. And Dale Jr. gets involved. And he wants to get involved to scan the track for iRacing. That's what he wants to do. So they have to get it cleaned up if they're going to do that. So he starts getting involved along with Marcus Smith, the owner, and they start going. It was seen that they weren't even sure they were going to pull this off due to the track's condition. It had deteriorated so much that writer Jordan Bianchi wrote that the facility is closer being condemned than anything else. It would require an investment of hundreds of millions of dollars to bring North Wilkesboro up to par. And that is simply not realistic. Well, 3 months later, Dale Earnhardt organized a track cleanup to remove weeds as part of the effort for the racing simulator we spoke about to come back. The scan was eventually completed and added into a simulator on May 2020. In 2021, Barry Braun, owner of a racing streaming service, met Marcus Smith and proposed the idea to run dirt races. Within the month, Marcus went on the podcast, the Dale Jr. Download, and was considering ways to revitalize it. That we haven't given up, but there's no promises, but we're still trying. 2 months later, the Wilkes Chamber of Commerce began handing out flyers trying to promote the revitalization and bringing back the track and getting it added back to the calendar. That same month, back then it was the Camping World Series. It's now the Craftsman Truck Series, but the title sponsor, Camping World CEO Marcus, I'm going to butcher his last name, Lemoine, maybe, also pledged $1 million to help for the track's revival. People wanted it back. Let's be clear. Tracks that sit for 30 years or 27 years, 20, whatever it was, with nothing going on, don't come back without an extensive push and a lot of money. So $1 million, you already heard Jordan Bianchi mention it's going to take over a couple $100 million. Well, they got one. So that same month, remember, we were dealing with the COVID pandemic in 2020. Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina, was trying to figure out if they could get any COVID-19 relief that would give $10 million to the government of Wilkes County to repair the facility. By August, they had increased that to $20 million. A renewed sense of hope started ringing that they might be able to pull this off. And it wound up coming in that they wound up getting it approved, and the funding had to go through a council vote, which there's no way that was going to fail. By the North Carolina General Assembly. In November, they had a vote, and the final amount came out to a total of $18 million is what they got. Within the month, they passed a vote. And if you know anything about politics, passing a vote in a month is crazy, especially with that kind of money involved. Soon after, Speedway Motorsports, who owns it, started construction and demolition of buildings immediately. Marcus Smith put revitalization plans in place, drawings. And in January of 22, stating that there was a real possibility of the facility being awarded a NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race weekend. And after all the people fighting and scratching and clawing to try to get that sliver of hope they wanted. And then on September 7th, the Athletic, or Jordan Bianchi works for, reported that NASCAR was going to move the All-Star race there. They were going to pull it away from Texas Motor Speedway and give it back for no points, just an all-star race. They took it and they loved it. And the next day it was confirmed, after the Athletic broke it, it was confirmed by NASCAR. And, of course, then they had to do a ton of renovations. I mean, they had to pave the infield for the garage. They had to add the safer barriers. They had to upgrade the storm drain pipes and all these other repairs to the facility that was just sitting idle for so long to make sure, A, they look good, because NASCAR doesn't want to put something that doesn't look good on TV or for the fans. And they wanted everything to be safe and functional. But they wanted to keep the old school look to it too. So, and by 23, they said we're ahead of schedule. And they started doing tire tests in late March there. By May, they named a new director of operations, which was Ronald Queen. Within the month, the NASCAR Cup Series made its return, running races in late May. They were the first there in 27 years. Of course, this was a couple years ago. 6 months later, the first repave. They repaved the whole track since 81. It was completed. They ran tire tests again that same month. And then in 2024, another loophole. They found a sinkhole that was found beneath the grandstand. People alleged it was a possible moonshine cave that would have been used during the 40s. It's been disputed because people said that place had terrible drainage issues before. So but it makes a kind of good story. If it was a moonshine cave, it would fit. So that's where we sit with this. To put this in perspective a little bit for you, I've got some little stats on it real quick. We've already mentioned that, the side, the length and everything. But the capacity, 25,000. We've got the owners. So it opened in 1947, so it's 79 years old. Let me see. It opened again. Okay. Closed and then closed again. And then the construction cost. And I'm going to assume the construction cost is from back in 1947 because it says construction cost, $3,000. $3,000 to build a racetrack. Not today. I don't care where you're building it. Not today. So I'm super glad it's back. It is by far one of the best tracks I can remember watching back in the days. But it's just a cool track. I like the older tracks. Your Martinsvilles, these are some of the staples of the NASCAR circuit. So I'm always excited when those come up. That's a little bit of our track info and kind of a little story and history and some of the stuff that went on in the fight and the effort it took to get this track back. We'll jump in and look at some of the lap records. Now, there's not a lot of lap records here because of the time, but obviously because cars back when they were still running there weren't near what they are now. You're talking 30 years of technology upgrades in these cars. 2024 at the All-Star race, Kyle Larson in a Chevrolet set the record for the Cup Series at 18.36 seconds. And in the truck series, 2024, no shock here, Corey Heim set it for the truck series at 18.431 seconds. Really, there was probably lap records for different series, and you could have probably looked at different eras and found different lap records, but this is just, I go with the most recent data on these lap records. It would be kind of neat. I may try to pull this at one point and go see what the lap speeds were back in the 90s and then what they were in the 80s, and just see the difference in how much faster the cars have gotten. May do that during the off season. We'll jump over and look at past winners. As I said, we're not going to spend a lot of time on past winners because a lot of them are names you know. Richard Petty has 15 wins there. Darrell Waltrip has 10 wins there. And Dale Earnhardt has 5. Those were the top 3. Didn't see the point in going through all of the, other names throughout NASCAR history for 2 wins, 1 win, all that stuff. But we will say 1996, at the last points paying race, was won by Jeff Gordon. He was probably excited. He was thinking he probably was the last winner ever at North Wilkesboro. Well, sorry, Jeff. Somebody's going to win this year. Truck series. Like I said, we've already done practice and qualifying. So I won't give you the times for all that because kind of pointless. So let's look at qualifying and let's see who stacks up where here. Let's go to the truck series, go to the lineup. Your pole winner for the trucks was Lane Riggs. Coming in, we did have, before we get through the qualifying results, we did have 4, I believe it was, drivers. Yeah. 4 NASCAR regulars, Cup Series regulars. Chase Elliott is driving the number 7 truck. Christopher Bell is driving the 62. Shane Van Gisbergen is driving the 71 truck. And Carson Hocevar is driving the 77. So they're going to drop down into this race. So when we speak of drivers to watch here in a second, I'm not mentioning them. Just know that they're drivers to watch. So the race is going to be, stages are going to be 70 laps for the first stage, 70 laps for the second stage, and 110 laps for the third stage. That's going to be your breakdown. Pretty quick track, pretty quick race. And it starts at 12:30 tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern on FS1, the Fox 1 if you have their streaming, I guess, and Channel 90 if you have Sirius XM radio. So you have Lane Riggs qualified first, and then here we go with Carson Hocevar, Christopher Bell, Corey Heim, Giovanni Ruggiero, Chase Elliott, Caden Honeycutt, Grant Enfinger, Chandler Smith, and Stuart Friesen. My drivers to watch, based on what I've seen drivers do on smaller tracks, obviously you're going with Corey Heim. You never count Corey Heim out when he's in one of these races. Lane Riggs, pole sitter. Ty Majeski didn't qualify well, normally does well on these tracks. Chandler Smith is the defending winner, and we'll throw Caden Honeycutt in there too. Those are kind of just some drivers to keep an eye out for. But if you want me to pick a winner, I'm probably going to lean Corey Heim. I just don't bet against Corey Heim. He went in, he's won a Cup Series race. Granted, it was a street circuit, but Corey Heim is the next big thing. He's going to be fun to watch for the next few years, for sure. Just wish I could shift him to a Ford. So that's the truck series and some drivers to watch there. We flip over and we start looking at the Cup Series. And now I have to do math because I meant to do the math earlier, but I didn't. So give me 1 second. Let me clear this. Go 265. 185. So this, we're going to do practice is tomorrow at 5 on True TV. And you can also listen on Sirius XM Channel 90. Qualifying will follow that at 6:10 p.m. on True TV. Again, you can listen to qualifying on Sirius XM Channel 90. And then the race, tentatively, like I said, based on weather, is scheduled for 7 p.m. on TNT. You can do HBO Max for driver cams, and then Channel 90, Sirius XM. The stages are going to be 80 laps, 185 laps for stage 2. And let me see what stage 3 is. I want to say it's 185. So it looks like it's 185, 185, and 80. So you'll definitely have at least a couple of pit stops in there. They might be able to run the whole first stage under one tank of gas. Don't know about tire wear. Might need to. They also NASCAR has come out and done some changes to the front bumper to soften it. So all this pushing and just shoving somebody out of the way, you need to be a little careful, because these cars have been so tough that you could just run into somebody and it doesn't do anything to your car. So now, not that the hope is, but I guess the hope is that it can cause significant damage to the front of your car, puncture your radiator, things like that. So that's going to be something to watch. The softer bumper could have a big say in this race. So we'll see how it plays out. There was another big change announced, but we're going to save that. We'll get more in depth from NASCAR, and it was regarding the Daytona package. So we'll get more into that as we get closer to Daytona. Drivers to watch. 2311 Racing, Joe Gibbs Racing, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson. The normals, William Byrons, Chase Elliott's, those kind of people. I don't put a lot of, stock. Maybe a Ryan Preece, maybe Chris Buescher, somebody like that. And you can always have some surprises. Shane Van Gisbergen did super well at Atlanta. So that's kind of a sleeper pick. Shane Van Gisbergen. My other sleepers, believe it or not, are Joey Logano. He did really well last week, maybe gaining some traction and some momentum. And my other sleeper is again, because he's won the All-Star Open race, not the All-Star race, but the Open to get into the All-Star race. He won it in 2023. Really good on short tracks. So I'm going to throw Josh Berry in as a sleeper for this week. Maybe if I keep throwing Josh Berry in for a sleeper every week, maybe eventually he'll wake up. One can hope. So those were drivers to watch and some of the sleepers. The big thing going on this weekend, of course, is we're now in the semifinals of our bracket challenge. So we're down to the 4 drivers, and we have 3 you could have expected to be here, and we got 1 who nobody expected to be here. And you got that last year too with Ty Dillon and really Ty Gibbs both. So you got the semifinals coming up. You got the number 3 seed, Ryan Blaney, last week's winner at Echo Park, is taking on the number 10 seed, Christopher Bell. Then you have on the other side, the number 4 seed, Chase Elliott, challenging the number 25 seed, Todd Gilliland. So it's always going to probably be like this, where you have one guy that's just like not supposed to be there, that's there based on head-to-head matchups and what happens in races. But my final selection when I filled out my bracket before this started was Chase Elliott beating Ryan Blaney in the final. So got to lean Blaney to get out of this and Chase Elliott to get out of this. And then, of course, next week will be the final, which is premiered to be at Indianapolis. So winner of the challenge wins $1 million. And so it's a good thing to watch. And they'll be talking about it during the race as to, where's Blaney, where's Bell. I mean, these teams are now, yes, they want the win, but they're also going to be wondering where's the other guy. You get down into that last stage and there's going to be Blaney on the radio. Where's Bell? Where's Bell? Where's Bell? He's 6 cars behind you. Okay. I just need to keep him there. Or for Bell, I got to find some way to go. We got one more pit stop. We got to tune this car up because I got to go. I got to get ahead of him or hope they have a bad pit stop or whatever. So it's going to bring the crews into it. And don't count Todd Gilliland out by any stretch. This is NASCAR. This isn't, this isn't any other type of sport to where, the favorite is more likely going to win. Well, Chase Elliott is more likely going to win. But there's nothing to say that Chase Elliott on a short track doesn't get spun on lap 3 and wreck his car and he's out for the race and Todd Gilliland advances with no issues. So you don't count anything out in this sport because all it takes is it doesn't even have to be a wreck. Chase Elliott could be cruising along in about 3rd position and somebody goes into the pits, comes out, a tire's not tight, it falls off loose, he runs into it, damages the car, and he's done. Anything, a brake rotor can come off. He could run over it, puncture his radiator. There's so many things that can go wrong in a NASCAR race that's why it's so difficult to win these things. And I say it's difficult to win, but then people will say, go look at Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin. Okay, you win. Yeah, this is something weird. You're going to have this where you have drivers winning multiple races, but being as dominant as they have is insane to me. So that's what we're looking at with the bracket challenge, drivers to watch, sleepers. It's going to be a good weekend of racing. Hopefully Mother Nature will hold off. I really, really hope she holds off because I really would like to see this race. We'll see what happens. Keep an eye on NASCAR.com if you're planning to watch the race at all or even listen to it if you're driving, doing something. Keep an eye on NASCAR.com. There'll be updates. Twitter, Bob Pockris, Dave Moody, people like that are good follows. PRN, MRN, Sirius XM Channel 90, following all that stuff. They'll send out updates on what's going on. If there's been a change in the format and the schedule, ESPN normally broadcasts it too. If you have the ESPN app, you'll get the notification if you have it set up. But keep an eye out to make sure, because I'd hate for somebody to say, well, they said 7 o'clock and then they turn it on at 7 and they're in stage 3 because they started at 4. So, please, keep track of the time and keep an idea on the weather. That's the one bad thing about it. You can't race, you can't race in a downpour. They probably have wet weather tires at this track, so they can race if the track is damp, but they won't race in a downpour. That's asking for danger and chaos and things we don't want to discuss that could happen. So we'll see what happens with it. Keep an eye out. I enjoy everybody that watched. Anybody that watches this on the replay, drop your comments. I'll get your comments even later and we'll respond to them and go from there. Other than that, you see all the channels that we run here. Scrolling down at the bottom, Level Up Sports 10, Parlay Po with Blitzburg, City League TV, One Take Zaya. I'm SEC Sean. We have WTP for Life Rob. We have Post Game and a Post Game 86 podcast. Joe Moss does Level Up Sports 10. That's that one. He's doing a conversation, I think, right now, actually. So, yeah, definitely tune in. Go like, subscribe, and share all of our channels. It extremely helps us out a lot. Give us ideas on what comments you want, things like that. Other than that, y'all have a great weekend, and we'll catch up probably Monday with a review, and may wind up trying to go live again if the race is going to go on. May try to jump on live on YouTube and kind of do a watch along for a little bit. So we'll see how that plays out. Have a good evening, everyone.